Well, good morning, Badgers, and happy. It is, let me look at my calendar. It is second week of January 2026. I can't believe it's 2026. Crazy when you think about it. Just thinking about being little and like how 2026 would view. Well, Mad Max was what was supposed to be happening in 2020. I could have kind of been. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But good morning and welcome to your Monday morning quickie, where I turn your past cringe into present power. I'm Krista. I am the host of the Gritty Glitter Badger podcast. And today I'm talking about why that full body wince you get looking at old photos isn't shame. It's proof you're not the same basic bitch you were 365 days ago. So if you're still comfortable with everything, you said, did, and posted last year, I've got news for you. You're not evolving. You are fossilizing. You are staying the same. So pour your coffee, pull up your time hop. Who remembers time hop? And if you dare, let's talk about why embarrassing might be the most underrated growth metric that we have. So let me tell you about a moment that I knew I was actually growing. So I love, if you know me, you know I love a good clear out. I love a good cleaning. And I was going through my office and I found a journal, and it was a past journal, and I just started like looking through it, because I was like, oh my God, right? You feel nostalgic and all that stuff, right? And then I came across an entry and I was like, what? And there was this, I was confidently wrong about basically everything, right? It's almost like there was so much ego involved in it when and I was just using words very um casually, like journey, and they were just being used unironically, and almost like it's something that I felt like I had to do because it was the thing, right? And giving advice that I wouldn't take from like my own worst enemy now, right? But that's the point. My first instinct was, look, we're gonna have a fire tonight, and that bitch is going in there. It's like the burn book it's gotta go, right? And then the second was to realize that was something powerful, right? That cringe that I felt, that like, oh, that recoil, it wasn't failure. It was a receipt. Like it was many receipts. And it was receipts that I'd evolved so far past that version of me that that old Krista felt like a stranger. And that's when it hit me. And I found this quote: if you're not a little embarrassed by who you were last year, you're not evolving fast enough. And that's unknown. I don't know where that came from. But, cringe is proof of growth. But we live in a world that treats embarrassment like it's leprosy, where everyone's curating their past to look like they've always been this enlightened, perfect, sitting on the mountaintop, and we're manifesting all of the good things. Well, I'm calling out bullshit. I want you to show me someone who isn't embarrassed by their past self, and I'll show you someone who stopped growing. Like, because every evolution requires getting rid of and letting go of previous versions of ourself, right? So, the neuroscience of necessary cringe, Dr. Susan David's research on emotional agility shows something your ego doesn't want you to hear. Embarrassment is a higher order emotion that requires self awareness, social understanding, and the ability to see yourself from outside perspectives, right? So, in other words, cringing at your past self isn't a weakness, it's cognitive sophistication. So, when you feel embarrassed by past you, and we all have, seriously, no one is exempt, right? Your brain is literally demonstrating metacognition. It's thinking about your thinking and realizing that it was trash. There's temporal perspective, and this is comparing past and present states. Then we have social awareness. And this is understanding how others might perceive us. Then we have growth recognition, and this is acknowledging the gap between versions. And I just did a full podcast on Thursday talking about identity lag. So if you want to go back and check that out, I really get into the nitty gritty of talking about that. So Dr. Brené Brown, she did research, and her shame research makes an important distinction. Shame says I am bad, while embarrassment says I did something inconsistent with who I'm becoming. One keeps you stuck, the other proves that you're moving. So the comfort zone cemetery, and this is where dreams go to die. Here's this uncomfortable truth that, if last year's you would be completely comfortable with current you, that means you've spent 365 days like literally just treading water. And Dr. Andy Malinsky's research on behavior outside comfort zone shows that the sustainable growth requires regular, optimal anxiety. That's like the sweet spot where you're uncomfortable, but you're not paralyzed. Get a sip of my tea. Thank you for your patience. And people who aren't embarrassed by their past selves usually fall into three camps, right? So there's the perfectionist, and this is somebody who curates their past to hide growth because growth implies previous imperfections. Then there's the stagnant camp, right? And this is people who literally haven't changed. So RIP to their potential, right? And then the delusional. These are people who think they nailed it from day one. And spoiler alert, they didn't. So Dr. Carol Dweck's growth mindset research is clear. People who live or people who view their past selves with healthy embarrassment are more likely to continue growing than those who either shame or glorify their previous versions. So this is the perfect time to review last year's self, right? And this is what I'm going to call the archaeological dig nobody wants to do. So it's time for some brutal honesty. So pull up your social media from January last year. Text messages from 12 months ago, if you have them, goals you set last New Year's, and work from earlier last year. Now, I want you to document what makes you cringe, specific examples. And again, I would like this to be pen to paper. I don't want this to be notes on a phone. Okay. So get like dope ass pen, notebook, whatever. I mean, if there's a napkin, let's get to it. Also, what advice would current you give past you? What beliefs have you currently abandoned? What habits make you go, what was I thinking? I feel like I say that to myself a lot. And what drama were you creating that seems absolutely ridiculous now? And Dr. Timothy Wilson's research on story editing shows that consciously reviewing and reframing our past actually accelerates future growth. You can't evolve from what you won't acknowledge. So celebrate the cringe, your embarrassment awards ceremony, right? That's exactly what it is. So here's where we can flip the script. So instead of hiding from embarrassment, we're going to fucking celebrate it, right? Because every cringe is evidence of evolution. So let's give out some awards. It could be the Did I Really Say That award for opinions you've completely reversed. Or it could be the Fashion Felony Award, like for style choices that maybe they haunt your dreams. It could be the Toxic Relationship Award. And these are just examples, right? For tolerating bullshit that you'd never accept now. Maybe it's the hustle culture casualty for glorifying burnout as productivity, or it's the know-it-all award for advice that you gave with unearned confidence. And Dr. Sonia Laya, I'm gonna mess this up. I even practiced this. I have it written down and I was like practicing her name. Dr. Sonia Lyabomirsky's happiness research shows that people who can laugh at their past selves have higher well-being than those who either idolize or demonize previous versions. Now, there is the growth gap analysis, and this is measuring your evolution velocity. So Dr. Robert Keegan's adult development theory identifies there are 5 stages of mental complexity. So most adults get stuck at stage 3. This is the socialized mind when they're defined by external expectations. And stage 4, this is the self-authored mind and beyond require regular identity updates. Again, letting go of who you were. And I really get deep into this in the podcast. It's episode 151, came out January 8th, right? So your evolution velocity depends on identity flexibility. How willing are you to be wrong about yourself? That's important. Feedback integration. Do you seek info that challenges your self-concept? Experimentation rate. How often do you try things that might fail? And reflection depth. Do you examine your changes or just experience them? Because it's not the same thing. And if your velocity is low, you're not risking enough, period, full stop, right? So I want you to set your bold growth target. So this 12-month transformation challenge. And this is basically, it's like just screw small goals, right? I'm talking about bags, big ass goals. If you're not slightly terrified by your 12-month vision, you're aiming too low. And Dr. Locke and Latham's goal setting research shows that difficult goals lead to higher performance than easy ones, but only when they're specific, right? So your 12-month embarrassment goals should be skills that scare you. What past you could would what past what would this could be a goal for me in podcasting is to not fumble, right? But what would past you say you could never do? Beliefs to demolish. What truths need to die? How about risks to take? What would make past you faint? Identity shifts. What do you need to become? And the goal isn't to change just because you're changing for change's sake. It's a strategic evolution toward who you're meant to be. So now here's where we can document our evolution, right? It's creating your cringe collection. So Dr. Gretchen Rubin's research on habits shows that monitoring increases success rates, but we're not just tracking, we're creating a cringe museum. So document monthly selfie videos, talk to the camera. It's something that, like, honestly, and I can say the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, right? And it could be talking about your current goals, your current beliefs, your struggles, your future, future you will, howl at it, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I listen to these podcasts and I hear myself fumble. I crack up, right? Before I used to censure myself and scold myself for it. And then, look, I'm human. I'm a legit person having a conversation, right? Weekly decision journal. So this is documenting the logic behind your choices. It's watch your reasoning evolve, right? Quarterly belief inventory. And this is where you're going to write down what you're sure about. Watch certainty crumble, right? And then there's daily micro changes. So this is where you're going to note one tiny evolution and they compound into transformation. So annual time capsule, this could be a full documentation of who you are right now, and then you bury it and you dig it up in 12 months, you cringe and you repeat, right? And the goal is you see the evolution. So Dr. Dan McAdams' narrative identity research shows that people who actively story their evolution develop faster than those who passively just experience. I want to take you now from cringe to confidence. And this is on a pipeline called the Cringe to Confidence Pipeline. I know, it's like so magic, isn't it? So I just dropped my pen. So today's growth, and I can get another one because I write myself notes while I podcast. So today's growth edge is tomorrow's cringe content. So the thing that you're terrified to try to become, right, becomes the thing that you can't believe you were scared of. So for me, an example would be, I was so terrified to do a 25K trail race, right? Well, this year I am like crapping my pants because I'm going to do a 50K trail run. Ultra marathon, I guess is what it is, right? Oh my God. Anyway, it just gets me in the gut. But Dr. Albert Bandura's self-efficacy research proves that confidence comes from accumulated evidence of overcoming challenge. This is also known as your cringe collection. because it's actually your confidence portfolio. So the pipeline works like this. The terror, I can never do that. Attempt, messy, imperfect action. Survival, that wasn't so bad. Repetition, building competence. Mastery, I can't believe I was scared. Cringe, look at how scared past me was. Confidence, what else was I wrong about? And why do some people never evolve? And, my word of advice, my caution is how to not be them, right? So Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's research on emotional granularity shows that people who can't distinguish between different uncomfortable emotions often avoid discomfort. See, they can't tell the difference between toxic shame and healthy embarrassment. So they avoid both, right? And the result is they experience zero growth. And the evolution killers, perfectionism, I talk about this all the time, can't risk being bad at something, right? Or there needs to be the perfect moment. You've got to have the perfect moment. Fixed identity. Well, this is just who I am. Comfort addiction, choosing familiar over growth. Ego protection, can't admit previous ignorance. And social image management. You are more concerned with looking consistent than being authentic, right? And if any of these hit home, congratulations. Really? I mean, that's good. You just found your growth edge. So your past self, that's your personal trainer. The plot twist with this is your past isn't your enemy. It's your personal trainer. Every cringe moment is you saying, look how far you've come, right? Every embarrassing belief is proof that you're capable of change. Every photo that makes you winch is evidence that you are not done evolving. And Dr. Hal Hirschfield's research on future self-continuity shows that people who feel connected to, but distinct from their past and future selves make better decisions. You need to honor your past, but the thing is, so honoring your past you needs to happen in order to get to where you are willing to go, in order to let them go to become who you want to be, who you are becoming, right? So this is where you take that, you're going to take the 12 months, right? And then you're going to have an annual embarrassment audit. And this is a yearly ritual. You do it one time a year. Best is like right before the new year, because that's the totality of the 12 months. Review everything from 12 months ago, right? Document what makes you cringe. Celebrate each embarrassment as a growth, and set scarier goals for next year. So share your evolution publicly, right? Vulnerability is the ultimate power movement. It is a strength. It is not a weakness. And because here's what nobody, really says is that the people that you admire the most, they're embarrassed by who they were last year too, or 5 years ago, or maybe even last week or a few months ago, right? They just channel that embarrassment into fuel for who they're becoming. So, all right, Badgers, let's land this evolution plane. If you're not at least a little mortified by last year's version of you, you are not growing fast enough. Period. Full stop. The embarrassment isn't failure, it's your receipt towards transformation. So this week, I dare you to do the archaeological dig, pull up those old photos, read those old journals, look at, the old, posts, document what makes you cringe, then celebrate every single win as proof that you're not the same person who made those choices. And your homework, share one specific way that you evolved this year. It's not for a humble brag, right? That's real transformation that would shock past you. And I want to normalize growth being messy, chaotic, ugly, embarrassing, and absolutely necessary. Because here's the truth, real talk, a year from now, you'll either be embarrassed by current you, or you'll be exactly the same. And I know which one I'm choosing. So stay evolving, stay cringeworthy, stay committed, stay gritty to letting go of every version of yourself that's keeping you small. And P.S., if you're not sure if you've grown, Ask someone who knew you last year, somebody you trust, somebody who's going to give you true feedback, right? If they don't say you've changed, you've got work to do. Get uncomfortable, get your future self out, let it go because it is counting on you. Don't just go through life, grow through life.